number 2, preview week number 2 of the Future Wives Club. Thank you for joining me here. I'm sorry I came on at 5:32 instead of 5:30 because of some technical difficulties, but I'm glad to be here. If you are joining me today, you might be on the Future Wives Club Facebook page. If you're not, I encourage you, go to Facebook. If you do Facebook, go to facebook.com, log into the Future Wives Club, facebook.com/the Future Wives Club. That's where we'll be posting consistently. But tonight, because it's a preview day, you're on Facebook, you might be seeing me on my husband Nick Stotzer's personal Facebook page. You might be seeing me on the Firehouse Community Church Facebook page. So I invite you, man, to just go ahead, if you're on Facebook, to go to facebook.com/Future Wives Club for more of this goodness that you're about to see tonight. Also, same thing for YouTube. You might be catching me on the Firehouse page. I'm so glad you're there. Subscribe if you just want more of Jesus and what he's saying and doing in the hour. But the Future Wives Club in the future will be airing on my personal YouTube channel, Kimberly Stotzer. My name is so strange that it will not be difficult for you to find it on YouTube. Just type in Kimberly and Stotzer, Stotzer. You'll see the Future Wives Club channel art up there, so you know you're in the right place. Go ahead, click subscribe so that you can join us every Monday evening at 5:30 p.m. All right. Amen. Okay, so I invite you to go ahead and chat, ask questions, talk back to me tonight. I'm going to talk about our story, my husband and I. I was considering, what do we talk about on a preview night? Last week, I got into some of the topics that the Future Wives Club is going to cover. Things like, what's the difference between having affectionate feelings for someone and knowing how to relate to them well, actually knowing how to love them and how to receive love? Things like being able to identify the difference between a man with flaws, an imperfect human being, which we all are, by the way, and someone who has habits or ways of being that are so toxic that you can't build a home with them. We talked about how we're going to get into wisdom and like who to listen to, who should be given authority to speak into your relationships and who should not. We covered, all the things about how we're going to present ourselves, and we're going to get into identity being something that needs to be displayed outwardly, especially when we're looking for a spouse. So if you're in the market, if you are a future wife and you haven't identified who that husband is yet, is the way that you're presenting yourself in the world reflective of who you truly are on the inside? We could say that men are shallow for looking at the outside, but the truth is very few of them can read your mind. So are you communicating through the way you present yourself, through your speech, your whole demeanor, who you really are, so that that man can find you? So we're going to cover all these things in the coming weeks. And that's what we talked about last week, was just kind of dipping into those different topics that we're going to get into on a weekly. And we'll open it up for 30 minutes and people will have an opportunity to ask questions or give feedback. So tonight, I thought this is a good opportunity for me to just share a little bit more with you about who I am. Why am I coaching the Future Wives Club, right? And I'm happy to share. My husband and I have been married for 14 years now. And a lot of the people in our lives, uh, unless they were there, maybe haven't had a chance to hear a lot about life before marriage. How did we get there? How did I get to the point of being married? I know I personally, when I was single and even as married, I'm really into hearing about that kind of thing. I'm really into, like, how did people come to be where they are? So let's talk about it. I am a woman of faith. The Future Wives Club is about preparation for marriage from a faith-based perspective, specifically a Christian perspective. And for me, this is something that wasn't always a given in my life. I wasn't sure that I was going to be married. I grew up in a family with very strong women, a very close knit family, close knit extended family. My grandma had 14 kids, got married at the age of 12, had 14 kids, and grew up, you know, post marriage, still growing up being completely dirt poor. Um, and really, through her children was able to better her life a little bit. But I think from that, I could see how my mom really took on this very strong work ethic, this strong independence. I'm going to be honest with you. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, and I felt more confident that I would one day have kids than that I would one day be a wife. I don't know if there's anyone else out there like that. The culture has gone further and further into families that don't necessarily stay together for the whole life of the parents. And so I know I personally thought, well, I don't know if I would be a single mom or if I would be a wife. And I didn't really have a great example in front of me as a child of what a healthy marriage might look like. So I just kind of moved forward and grew. And I think it's very important as a woman. So you got to let me like test the teach. Okay. Like I'm going to give you my testimony. I'm going to tell you how we fell in love, but I'm going to slip in some lessons along the way. Okay. So, and I would love for you to let me know if I'm skipping something in the story or if there's a question you have. But for me, I I knew that there was more to life than being married, and I wasn't even sure if I wanted to be married. I don't know if there's any other women out there who are in this situation, but at the end of the day, I knew God had made me beautiful. He had made me smart. He'd given me talents and abilities, and I was about to go get after what my life was about, whether I was going to be married or not at that time. And yet at the same time, there was such a longing, there was such an ache in me to have the things that I saw on TV, to have a companion, to have someone to love. All of us want that as well. So, um, my journey might look a little bit different than some, but I'm gonna just hop into the testimony. Um, and I'm sorry, somebody gonna show this to my mom. My mom's gonna kill me. My husband might kill me. Y'all should just check body bags for me after I'm done telling my story because I'm not sure. But they all love me, so they'll forgive me. It's fine. When I when I was young, I didn't grow up with my dad in the house. My mom and dad were actually together for 20 years, but it culminated in my birth or shortly after my birth. I didn't grow up in the house with my dad, and I really had a craving for male attention when I was young, and I think my mom maybe saw it but didn't know what to do about it. And fortunately, I wasn't. You know, my husband says, "Don't hurt me bad, honey." I can't make any promises. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I was really in this desperate thing for male attention, and so, but I was also raised Christian, right? So I was balancing this desire to have male attention constantly, and also trying not to overstep the lines that I personally thought were my limits. So man, that meant I had, like, a lot of guys around when I was young, when I was in high school and college, and I looked a lot younger than I was growing up, so it wasn't really until the last year of high school, first year of college that I could even really get male attention because I didn't realize I looked like I was 10 or 11, right? I just, as many women do, will take it as rejection, not really understanding the context of what's going on. Well, um, I dated a lot of guys, um, and I had decided that I wanted to be abstinent, which meant that I dated a lot more guys because they only held on for so long before they realized that that was the situation. And then I would have to like switch it up. Oh God, help me. I'm just putting all my life out. So I talked to a lot of guys. That also led me to a lot of proposals. For some men, they'll be disinterested if they realize investing a few months, it wasn't gonna get sexual there because I was trying to wait for marriage. But for some other men, they just thought, that's great. Let's get married. So my husband was actually either the ninth or 10th man to propose to me when I was, and I got married at 23 years old. So we got married in 2006. That was the ninth or 10th guy to propose. And so that has its own lesson in it because, knowing what I wanted and being really focused on it, led other people to decide that they wanted it too. But I'm grateful to God that I didn't actually go forward with marrying them because I think that that was an immature gesture for most of them anyway. And it would have been immature for me to follow through at the time. But moving forward, I had been wild and out of my mind. I even got to the point that I wanted to pay for law school, And I had such an unhealthy dynamic with men that one of the guys I dated, I thought, wow, he's really handsome, Um, he he had friends who had been in jail. Maybe he had been in jail. I don't know. Anyway, he had a number of friends who were about to get out of jail soon. All young men, like, early 20s. And I thought, wow, they would make great strippers. Okay, so this is like I said, I was Christian, but I wasn't mature. I wasn't sanctified at this point. And I thought, oh yeah, these guys would make like a great group of strippers because he told me that he had used to work in a strip club and like as a waiter because he was underage at the time. It's like a whole story. Anyway, I just thought, okay, I could actually make a business out of this. I don't know if y'all remember like two-way pagers. Like this is in the era of the two-way pager right before text messaging became the thing. And I thought, okay, I will get us all some two ways, make some flyers. I'll go to the nail salons, I'll go to the hair salons, I'll pass out flyers, just male exotic dancers. They can come do parties or whatever. They can do like baby shower. Well, baby shower. Oh, that's not right. Bridal showers. They can, they can do birthday parties, they can do whatever. And this would be the way that I would make the money because I'm the woman. So I have the end to the other women. And then I would just take my cut off the top and I would just disappear. And at the time, I did kind of feel like that one guy, might want to go further with some of those women for extra money and or his friends. And I thought I will be gone before that could possibly happen. That has nothing to do with me. Um, I don't know. If somebody plays this for my mama, it's gonna be wild. Don't play this for my mama. But at the time, my mom was like, "You realize that would make you a pimp, right? You would be a pimp." And I thought, technically, no. So this is the state. This is the state of where my mind was in relationship to relating to men. It was not a great place. That's at the age of 19. Yeah. As I was getting my associate's degree. But I actually had this encounter with God. I know this is crazy, but I was in my mom's dining room and I just felt this really clear sense. By the way, I grew up like cessationist, like, you know, God isn't real. God doesn't speak to people anymore. And Jesus is just he spoke in the Bible and that's it. And hey, God bless. I love everybody. That's all right. I came to faith in that context. So that's fine. But on this day, I was really, really clear that there was a hard, like, you need to stop on this direction with the whole male exotic dance team slash semi prostitution ring that you're trying to start, like a hard stop. Like you can't go in both directions anymore. And I remember I had another opportunity to help a friend with this personal training business. And that was just very normal, passing out flyers and that kind of thing over that summer. And so my summer project became helping the friend with this personal training business instead of starting my business of the male exotic dance team. But that moment of softening my heart, it just was the beginning of a journey of really softening my heart and letting the way I was relating to men be reframed. And I came to a point over time, other dating relationships, got engaged to someone, uh, that broke off. And I came to a point where, man, I was really tender and I was like, I don't even know if I want to be married. I felt like I'd gotten so far off track by dating and or whatever it is I was doing and engaging with these guys. I felt like there was so much manipulation involved. So much of it was me being afraid and trying to create a safety net. And it was about me pleasing them and me being chosen and not necessarily what I knew that it should be, even though I didn't know what it looked like yet. So I completely stopped. I remember calling a bunch of people. I remember changing my cell phone number. I remember completely coming off the grid of this sort of network that I had created for myself and going, okay, God, like I'm totally off of it to the point that I even stopped watching romantic movies. Now, this might sound extreme. This is my story. This is not everybody's story. This might sound extreme for some of you, but I got to the point where I actually stopped like watching any movie that ended with a man and a woman get married and live happily ever after. And it wasn't because I hated men, it was because I wanted to stop making an idol out of getting into a relationship as the ultimate end for a successful life. So I actually had to completely stop watching that stuff. Like I literally was watching action movies, comedies. I was totally avoiding romantic dramas and romantic comedies. And that's funny, but some of you need to do that right now. There are some women right now who need to turn off every soap opera, reality show about hooking up with somebody, telenovelas. Don't watch The Bachelor. Like there's a bunch of you. There's a bunch of people out there who actually need to like unplug from all the songs on the radio for a moment and actually let themselves like cleanse out and get recalibrated and align with reality in a fresh way, because a lot of those stories, they don't have any bearing on reality, and most of the stories, the vast majority, end at the point of falling in love or the point of the actual wedding. That is even less common now, right? So when you do a whole build up and the whole movie is about flirting and then ultimately deciding that you feel in love with each other and that's the end, you get a really short-sighted and immature picture of what it looks like to have a relationship, because you stop before the relationship uh really unravels, let alone if the writers were in a healthy enough space themselves to show you what a healthy relationship would look like. So I'm a fan of those movies and shows who take that extra step, because it's hard to do, and really show some of the realities in relating in relationships among family and amongst people, and really uncover that that's not easy to do. But big ups to those who take that step and they try to do that, because we need those pictures and our kids need those pictures to see. So I grew up thinking the ideal marriage was uh the family on the Cosby Show, because that was the closest picture that I had to look at. So anyway, let's flash forward. At around 22, I did meet my husband at church. A lot of people have asked me, "Where did you meet him? Where did you guys get together?" We met at a church, and I actually met him the day he got saved. So the list, let me tell you, he had only about half of the list, because I definitely did not have on the list somebody who was just coming into their spiritual rebirth or awakening on the day that I met him. Man, this sweet guy came in not very sweet. This dude came in angry, um addicted to alcohol and cigarettes. Um he was a porn dealer at the time, a fighter, like in every way, but I do mean physically. My husband was definitely somebody with his own set of stories, and you got to hear his stories. Like he literally used to run with like death row at one point in his life, and just this whole other thing. Okay. But he came in this day not showing very much of that, because he's walking into a church. He's got a coat on, he's sitting there. And I actually am there on the day when God like moves on his heart, and he gets touched during worship when his little girl is singing, and he ends up, getting saved and starting this spiritual development journey of his own. And at that point, I was already a minister. I had been a minister for about a year and a half at that point. And like I said, I had a journey with God, but I I was a believer from the time I was a little girl. So we definitely weren't coming from the same worldview or perspective at that moment. Um, I think that was one of the things that really surprised me about my story with my husband. And one of the things I'm going to encourage the Future Wives Club to be open about is that you may not have what you need on your list. Oh, you might have learned a lot from past experience, and if you have taken time with that thing and gotten counsel about it, pray through it, hey, maybe you might have a list that is even 75% right. But I guarantee you there are things that you don't even know you need in another person, things that are opposite who you are that you don't even know are needed to balance you out. So it's important to be open to what it is that actually might make the best partner for you. When we got together, we were like just super on fire about everything. I would say it was about, I don't know how long it took me to actually pay attention to my husband. I know that he would bring me delicious food on my break where I was working as a receptionist at a law office, and I didn't send him away because that food was so good that I wanted the food even though I didn't want him to think I liked him. And the next thing I knew, um, I liked him. I'm gonna skip the story of the first date because that causes a lot of fighting. I'm just gonna say he said it wasn't a date, but it sure seemed to be a date. And, I'm gonna leave that alone. The $300 bill, all of those things. He said it wasn't a date, so I invited other people to come. And then I didn't know he was gonna buy all their drinks and food when they came. And the fact is, it was a $600 bill, and the guy gave him half off and made it a $300 bill. And all I'm saying is that my fault if I don't know that it's a date, or was it not a date? And if it's not a date, then why do you pay for everybody? Okay, I'm gonna let that go. But anyway, it was $600. I see you. I see you. I'm not it was 600, but he only made you pay 3. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, yeah, after we had been friends for a while, I went ahead and opened up my heart, and I would say we kissed. There was a kiss, one of those lunch drop-offs. Led to me kissing him, and like 2 weeks later we're thinking we're in love. Um we took immediately took a break because I was very freaked out because I thought I had decided that I was not trying to get married or get with anybody right now. I took about 5 or 6 weeks to recollect myself, seeing him a couple times a week in the process because we worked together. We were volunteering together at that time. And when we did get back together, we got engaged within a week or two and got married 3 months later. All right. That's not everybody's story. I get that. But remember that for me, where I am with my faith and where he was with his, it was really important for us that we're not in bed with someone that that he wasn't sleeping with someone that wasn't his wife. And that was a new thing for him. It was something for me where I really wanted Covenant to be involved. So we were both really confident in the decision. We had a lot of connection with our spiritual community at the time. Our parents thought we were crazy, but they respected the decision because we're American and that's what we do in America. But we did talk a lot to our spiritual community. We had people who were getting dreams, people who were close to us who rose with us. Like there was one night where 3 people had dreams about us coming together when we weren't together yet. My husband was moving forward in his own calling in his own life. And that 6 weeks we were separated, he got licensed as a minister. He was moving forward with his life as well. And it came to a culmination very quickly for us. Now, we only waited 3 months to get married because I required a ceremony and a nice dress. My husband wanted to get married in 2 weeks in the minister's office without just signing a license. But we slowed it down. So it was about 7 or 8 months for us from the time that we met to the time that we got married. Now, I know that that sounds really short, and it is short. But again, we're talking about 14 and a half years later, 2 gorgeous children later, a beautiful life later. So while it may not be something that everybody should do, I think it was definitely right for us. And no 2 stories are exactly the same. Actually, Heidi and Roland Baker got married after 1 date at a McDonald's. So I feel like we definitely beat them by several months in the process of waiting. I would say that doing it the way that we did it, for anyone who's considering a quick marriage, a quick union, doing it the way that we did it was really difficult for our families, though. It took our parents a while and our siblings and our extended families a while to really feel like they knew the other person and really come on board and be supportive. And there are people in your life who will never approve of who you're with. It's not about getting their approval. There are some people for whom no one is ever good enough. I'm not saying you should wait until you have everyone's approval in your life to move forward, but I am saying that having the wisdom I've gained, living another 15 years of life, there are some things that I could have done that he could have done to make it a bit easier for our families for sure. But in the end, do I regret it? Absolutely not. We barely made it to waiting until we got married, and that was great. um, we really have taken this whole thing as an adventure, though. That's really indicative of our whole life. If you know us personally, we will jump up and move on a leap of faith. We will go to a place that we've never been to before, because we feel like this is what God's calling us to do. We've adopted two gorgeous children, 4 and 7, on a leap of faith because we felt like God was pulling us to intervene into this family line and really save and restore these boys, these gorgeous black men that we have adopted. We are That's who we are, and that's something that I think we found in each other. And one of the things that drew us together is that we did have this sort of radical faith, and oh, the years have tested that faith, absolutely. But at the end, it's the thing that brings us together and holds us together. And I think that's really important for every marriage, that there be something bigger that's binding you together, so that when you don't feel like yourself, when someone dies, when there's depression, when there's loneliness, when there's sickness, there's something keeping you. And for us, that something is Jesus. And I think that's the very best something that there is. Amen. All right, so that's it. I don't have time to get into more. That was just a bit of my story. There's obviously a lot more to tell. I didn't even realize how hard it would be to say it in 30 minutes until I started trying to say it. There's so many details to it and nuances, but that's my story. Mine was a little wild. It was a roller coaster ride, and it was a beautiful one. But there are many other stories, and I plan to have other women come on and talk about their story, the marriages that are blessed or working right now, and the marriages that didn't work out, and why, because there's something to learn from all of our stories. All right. Thank you for joining me, ladies. Come back again 5:30 p.m. next Monday. We're actually going to get into the topics, get into the meat of discussion. I'm so excited. Join us on facebook.com/the Future Wives Club, or go ahead to youtube.com and search for my name, Kimberly Stotzer. That's Kimberly Stotzer. You'll see the Future Wives Club banner on the channel. Go ahead and click subscribe. I'm excited to get into the realness with you. I'm going to share all the secrets. All the secrets. All right. Love y'all. Good night. I'm going to try to do this cooler than I did it last time. Okay. It's not cool.